Per the AP, authorities are still trying to learn more about what motivated the fatal shooting of Charlie Kirk at a college in Utah, as memorials for the conservative activist were held Sunday for his life and legacy. Tyler James Robinson, 22, of Washington, Utah, was arrested on suspicion of aggravated murder and other felony offenses. Prosecutors are drawing up formal charges that could be filed early next week, when he will make his first court appearance. Investigators have spoken to Robinson's relatives and carried out a search warrant at his family's home in Washington, about 240 miles southwest of Utah Valley University, where the shooting took place. Here are things to know about the killing. As far as the motive, authorities have not provided many details about why they think Robinson carried out the attack on Kirk. Quote, "There clearly was a leftist ideology," Utah Governor Spencer Cox said on NBC's Meeting the Press, noting that family and friends described Robinson's politics as veering left in recent years. They recounted to authorities a dinner table conversation in which he mentioned Kirk's upcoming visit to Utah Valley University. Cox said Robinson is not cooperating, and that friends paint a picture of someone radicalized in the dark corners of the internet. Cox stressed on several Sunday morning news shows that investigators are still trying to pin down a motive for the attack on the father of two and confidant of President Donald Trump. State records show Robinson is registered to vote, but is not affiliated with a political party and is listed as inactive, meaning he did not vote in the two most recent general elections. His parents are registered Republicans. Ammunition found with the weapon used to kill Kirk was engraved with taunting messages. What do we know about Robinson? He grew up around St. George in the southwestern corner of Utah, between Las Vegas and natural landmarks including Bryce Canyon and Zion National Parks. Robinson became a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known widely as the Mormon Church, at a young age, church spokesperson Doug Anderson said. Robinson has two younger brothers, and his parents have been married for about 25 years. According to social media posts, online activity by Robinson's mother reflects an active family that took vacations to Disneyland, Hawaii, the Caribbean, and Alaska. Like many in that part of Utah, they frequently spent time outdoors, boating, fishing, riding ATVs, zip-lining, and target shooting. 2017 post shows the family visiting a military facility and posing with assault rifles. A young Robinson is seen smiling as he grips the handles of a .50 caliber heavy machine gun. A high school honor roll student who scored in the 99th percentile nationally on standardized tests, he was admitted to Utah State University in 2021 on a prestigious academic scholarship, according to a video of him reading his acceptance letter that was posted to a family member's social media account. But he attended for only one semester, according to a university spokesperson. He is currently enrolled as a third-year student in the electrical apprenticeship program at Dixie Technical College in St. George. This guy's politics are, it seems, all over the place. The messages that were written to these bullets can be attributed in some spaces to leftist ideologies and leftist communities, but just as easily can be attributed to the Kuiper community, and in fact are more associated with that, but also just a sort of general nihilistic internet culture that we have nowadays. I'm sorry, like there is no communist plot to kill somebody like Charlie Kirk. There is no leftist group that I think sees him as anything more than a complete fucking joke. The idea that this kid, that there's some kind of, it's insulting that a paper of record, a news source of record, would present this as anything other than just an attempt to push this theory of a trans agenda. And I hate to break it to you guys, but there are plenty of trans people who are conservative. There's an entire subgroup of people who are out and out Nazis who come out as transgender. They're a big fucking tent, let me tell you, because they're just people. Some politicians have pointed to that as a sign Robinson was targeting Kirk for his anti-transgender views, but authorities have not said whether it is relevant to the investigation. Cox said the partner has been incredibly cooperative and had no idea that this was happening. Cooperating with the FBI against their own partner or friend? Yeah, sure, they're totally leftist. What has the fallout from the assassination been? It prompted calls for greater civility in the country's political discourse, especially on social media. But many people have made comments about Kirk and the shooting that brought consequences. Numerous workers have been fired for their comments on Kirk's death, among them MSNBC political analyst Matthew Dowd. Supporters gathered at a makeshift memorial in Orem, Utah, Saturday, September 13, 2025, at Utah Valley University for Turning Point USA CEO and co-founder Charlie Kirk, who was fatally shot during an event on the campus. It's not the first time people have lost jobs over things they say publicly, but the speed of the firings has raised questions about free speech rights. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, education commissioner, warned teachers in the state that making disgusting statements about Kirk's assassination could draw sanctions, including the suspension or revocation of their teaching licenses. The conservative internet personality who is embedded with immigration agents in Chicago filmed a video outside Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker's private home in which he urged viewers to take action after Kirk's assassination. I don't think that guy's been fired yet, by the way. Pritzker's office said his security has been increased in recent days. Partisans have been fighting over who's to blame for Kirk's death, but experts on political violence say many of those who commit such crimes seem to act on beliefs that don't map clearly onto partisan lines. They say the broader political environment is more important. The more heated the atmosphere, the more likely it is to lead unstable people to commit acts of violence. Memorials are held in Washington, Arizona, and elsewhere. A key vigil at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. was among numerous tributes to Kirk on Sunday. The line of mourners in Washington wrapped around the center. Kirk also was memorialized at Dream City Church in Phoenix, where he hosted one of his Freedom Night in America gatherings. Attendees viewed clips of Kirk discussing his desire to be remembered for courage for my faith. Angel Barnett, a church pastor, called on the crowd to honor Kirk by carrying on his message. Flowers, U.S. flags, and handwritten messages were left at a makeshift memorial at Utah Valley University's main entrance. The school has said there will be increased security when classes resume Wednesday. Turning Point USA, Kirk's conservative organization, will hold a memorial for him September 21st at State Farm Stadium outside Phoenix, where the Arizona Cardinals play. His widow, Erica Kirk, who vowed to continue his campus tour and his radio and podcast shows. To everyone listening tonight across America, the movement my husband built will not die. She said Friday in a live stream video, "It won't. I refuse to let that happen." I don't speak for the entirety of us at AT News, but I have only this to say about Charlie Kirk. I did not like him in life, and in death, he is who he was. He said deplorable things. It cannot be said that Charlie Kirk never called for violence or supported it. He was involved with, the lead up to January 6th. There's clips of him calling for the execution of Joe Biden. A lot of the political policies that he supported essentially involved forms of violence. The man was, he had disgusting political views. That doesn't mean he deserved to die. When I heard that a conservative talking head had been assassinated, Charlie Kirk was not even on the list, largely because Kirk recently, actually for many years, has been mostly a joke among the left. He has extreme views, and his views are more often than not disgusting to someone like me, but he also has a history of getting pretty much embarrassed by people with actual knowledge. Charlie Kirk built himself up as the conservative college kid, despite never finishing college, which is fine. But, you can't go and claim that college campuses are becoming increasingly left-wing when you haven't actually been to those college campuses. And that was sort of the problem. He eventually aged out of being, the conservative college kid when he started getting into his 30s and later. And it was, past the point where, he would have graduated from college, but he hadn't yet. And he'd been building his media career. And so he kind of just became, another conservative talking head, like Ben Shapiro, who has become less and less relevant in today's world. Their political views are unchanged. And Kirk, I would say, far more extreme on the right-wing spectrum than I'd say somebody like Shapiro is, even though they share pretty much identical views. Shapiro tends to be a little more, I don't want to say moderate, but, he backs off from any sort of extreme controversial shit. He's kind of seems like he's got a good thing going that he doesn't want to upset. But apparently Kirk had been involved in a long-term feud with somebody who is completely willing to go to whatever extreme there is left to go to, which is Nick Fuentes, which, by the way, is what most people at this point are saying this shooter was associated with. The engravings on his bullets, as previously mentioned, were memes that are often associated with that movement, which is also a movement that, because of the politics that we're dealing with here, cannot be easily tied down to right and left in a lot of ways, because there are crossovers among these ideologies. We in this country are so used to this idea of these diametric opposites of right and left, Democrat and Republican, and the truth is, in reality, they intersect on a lot of different things. Largely, we're seeing a ton of that right now. Democrats and Republicans are essentially in lockstep when it comes to the support of Israel. And unfortunately, the people who are out and out Nazis support policies in some cases that can be found to be supported among leftist organizations and things you might see in a country like Soviet Russia. Certain not social programs necessarily, but usually more in an economic sense. They're the idea of the state entering the economy, which is something that I think Kirk was adamantly against. But for Fuentes' supporters, his Groyper Army, they're called, apparently Kirk was somebody who's seen as either a fake right-winger or somebody who's not willing to go far enough right, which is actually something that we see a lot on the left. I mean, here at 18 News, we love Zoran, but for me personally, Zoran doesn't go far left enough. Even though we like the guy, he's not an out and out. His ideology is still firmly, I think, liberal, progressive. So, when it comes to the shooter's motivations, you're probably going to see some things that he's said that are going to match up with some left-wing ideologies. But a lot of the evidence is showing that this is simply somebody who was chronically online, whose worldview was shaped by a culture that is isolated and extreme, but in multiple directions. If it turns out that this guy was an out-and-out leftist, maybe he considered himself an anarchist, a pure left-winger of various sorts, anarcho-communist, communist, anarcho-syndicalist, something like that, fine. I can understand that. I don't personally think that somebody with those views would be motivated to kill somebody like Kirk. Again, we've already said he's kind of a joke on the left, but it's possible. But they're kind of painting a picture here of, somebody who kind of waffles in the middle and is really just someone who, I guess, has become inured to violence and wanted to exercise his sort of political will in a violent sense, which can be attributed to any sort of political side. And that's really, I mean, it was said earlier in the article, and I think that's really what we're seeing here is just we are in an extremely volatile political climate right now, and some people in that climate have no way to react to it other than with violence. And, we saw it in the early days of the Trump admin where we have people who couldn't easily be put into any political box taking shots at him. The famous Trump assassination, that kid really was not a leftist, maybe he had some right-wing opinions, but he really was kind of lost. And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing a lot of people who feel disenfranchised by the current political climate, people who don't find themselves with a voice, with somebody speaking for them, people who don't have a political community of their own and kind of taking what they can from various sources. And it seems like, unfortunately, this kid latched on to some political ideology or some political message out there, whether it was left or right, that led him to commit an act of violence. Again, in life, I didn't like him. I don't like what he stood for. I think that he did create some harm, but, nobody should go out like that. AT News, I'm Dave.